Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Sunday evening, the 10th of February 2019, and this is take 2 of Central Banks Are Buying Gold. That is all I need to know. And we did about 18 minutes and we lost the stream, so we're trying again. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start from the beginning so you won't have to go back and try to piece together the first video. The first video is called Central Banks Are Buying Gold. That is all you need to know. And this one is called Central Banks Are Buying Gold. That is all I need to know. So if you were listening to the first one, you can switch over to this one and I'll try to cover everything that we missed. Okay, so the concept of central banks are buying gold, that is all I need to know. That is something that we have been hearing for quite some time now. And basically, it's mostly been because of Russia and Kazakhstan, although this year a few other countries have added to their gold reserves. And the central banks are buying gold. It's almost a meme, is right up there with the silver pumpers with JP Morgan is buying silver. That is all I need to know. At least in the case of the central banks buying gold, there is some truth to it. Yes, we're back, Pablo, and yes, and we are back. Okay. So tonight we're going to go through the central banks, which ones are buying, why they're buying, and we're going to put it all in the perspective of the supply and demand dynamics across the board. First, let's look at the gold price tonight. Gold price is flat at $13.13. Silver price is $15.78. And over on the cryptocurrencies, we're seeing quite some movement over there. Bitcoin at $36.06. That's flat. Litecoin at $45, that's up 2%. Ethereum at $4, up 1%, and Bcash down 3% at 122. All right, let's get into some of the crypto stories before we hit the central banks are buying gold. That is all I need to know. All right, the other night we were talking about Bitcoin ETFs, and I had mentioned there was a commissioner that was in favor of the Bitcoin ETF. She voted in favor of it. She wrote a long dissenting opinion as to why it should have been approved. Her name, I said, was Hester Prynne. That is the woman from the Scarlet Letter. Her name is actually Hester Pierce. Well, there was another story about a new SEC commissioner named Jackson, who also is in favor of the Bitcoin ETF, and he gave an interview saying it's pretty much a matter of time until a Bitcoin ETF gets approved. And here Hester Pierce tweets out to SEC Commissioner Jackson saying, I look forward to working with you to open the doors to innovation, but we're not a merit regulator issuing seals of approval, so let's encourage investors to do their own work to decide whether an investment is right for them. And the thing about the SEC is they neither approve or disapprove securities. Their job is to make sure that there is enough information out there for investors to make a rational decision. They don't approve or disapprove of any of the securities. In this case, they're looking to approve a rules change that would allow a Bitcoin ETF to be approved by the SEC, but they're not approving of a Bitcoin ETF in any way, shape, or form. And they actually say on all prospectuses that you file with the SEC that the SEC neither approves or disapproves of the securities herein, words to that effect, and that any representation to the contrary is, I think, a criminal offense. So we'll see what happens there, but it looks like you're going to get some type of Bitcoin or ETF. Now, the thing I was mentioning is a lot of people are judging the health of Bitcoin, Litecoin, and other cryptocurrencies on the basis of price. And that was a mistake that I had made back in 2011 when the price collapsed from $1,000 down to a couple $100. I said, see, this thing is dead. Price indicates it. The price doesn't indicate jack, really, because ever since then, and even after each successive collapse of 70-80%, work continues on the network, innovation continues, money continues to pour in, and as we've seen, when the price collapsed at the end of beginning of 2018, you still saw a tremendous amount, the biggest amount of interest from institutional investors with Fidelity investing money, Goldman Sachs buying a stake in a company that owns Poloniex. We saw backed by the New York Stock Exchange, set up a company designed to trade, store, and spend Bitcoin. We saw Van Eck push for a ETF. We saw a lot of money pouring into stable coins. And the network today is bigger and stronger than ever before, but the price isn't. And the other thing is that the lowest price of the year for the last 7 years has gone progressively higher. So even though we saw a drop from 20,000 down to 3,200, the low price of the year in 2018 was, I think, 3,200, which was higher than the low price of the year of, I think, 1,800 in 2017 and so on. So as you go back, the lowest price is still higher than the prior year, and we're still seeing that trend today. The price of Bitcoin has not gone below the lowest price of 2018 so far in 2019. And an example of this innovation also is the Lightning Network. The Lightning Network is growing, and that is a way of scaling Bitcoin. They say it now hit 6,000 nodes after a week of Twitter Spotlight, and that's because they have this torch going where people are passing around Satoshis, and it just keeps passing one for the other. And they're saying now that the Bitcoin Lightning Network, which is nowhere near fully developed, is comparable with Apple Pay, researchers reveal. Very interesting things going on with Bitcoin. Now, Litecoin, even more interesting is going on with the price. The price of Bitcoin has been rising steadily. It's up almost 45-50% the last few days. And we speculated the other night that maybe that's because of this Mammoth Film Festival, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but a lot of the people, the Litecoin Foundation has people at that festival talking to the directors, producers, and actors and actresses, introducing them to Litecoin. Maybe they're buying it. I don't know. But it is part of a PR to gain some type of name recognition and acceptance. And they had done a pretty big ad spend at the UFC and had the Litecoin logo on the mat there during the fights. And now they're pushing this, just saying Litecoin is heading to Hollywood. I'm not sure that that is driving it, because if you look at the largest if you look at Crypto Whale with the Litecoin Whale, they're showing that a lot of action amongst the top 10 largest wallets with a net flow of Litecoin going in there. So something is happening. There's accumulation underway. I'm not sure who those 10 wallets belong to, but the largest wallets, I think the top 10 or so, have about 40% of the Litecoin, and they are accumulating it. We're not sure why that is happening. But the price has risen. It has risen significantly, and it's risen beyond. It's not rising lockstep with the whole crypto market. It's actually rising well ahead of it. And we're starting to see stories now about maybe it's because of the Litecoin halving, and that may push Litecoin higher. That happens in about 6 months. It's something that traditionally does move the price of a crypto higher, and the reward will be cut for miners from 25 to 12.5 coins when that happens. And there's another story here talking about $50 being now within sight of for Litecoin. And I don't know why these things go up or down, but one thing is for sure, that the price of the cryptocurrencies really has nothing. It's all based on charts, sentiment, interest. It's got really nothing to do with the health of the network, because most people who buy them, they don't know why they buy them. They buy them because they're going up. And then when the price goes down, they have to sell because it's going down, because they have no idea why they bought it. They bought it because it's going up. And if it's going down and they don't know what it's for, then they sell it. Now, I would imagine that there are people who buy it and then learn something. And I would say maybe 1 out of 15, 1 out of 20 who bought it last time during the hype finally understood what it was, and some of those people probably held on, and maybe they're buying more, maybe they're not. But then other people who never understood it, bought it and sold it, and still don't understand it. And I think it's a slow process where you get people in who, in each successive pump, so to speak, you catch people who come in for the price, and some of them stay to understand what's going on and then appreciate that this may be a 2 to 5 year thing, if ever, where it gets bigger. Who knows? But the Litecoin Summit is coming up, they say, the second Litecoin Summit, and that'll be in October. All right. Let's move on now to our gold and silver story, or just basically the gold story. The central banks are buying gold. That is all I need to know. Before we move on, we mentioned the other night how there are record amounts of Bitcoin and Litecoin being traded in Venezuela through a peer-to-peer trading platform called Local Bitcoins, where people can meet up and trade. They find each other on this app, or they can trade through the app, and that's how some people are getting by in Venezuela. Also, Venezuelans, there's gold in Venezuela, and there's some mining areas, and some Venezuelans are taking to the rivers and old mines to see if they can scrap up some gold so they can pay their expenses. All right, let's move on now to central banks are buying gold. That is all I need to know. Now, the headline has been, and the headline was that central bank demand in 2018 was the highest since Nixon closed the gold window, which is basically nearly 50 years ago. And that has all of the gold people aflutter with, this doesn't make any sense, where central banks are buying gold hand over fist and the price isn't skyrocketing. Well, there's a reason it's not skyrocketing, because it really isn't that significant, and we're going to show you why. So according to the World Gold Council, central banks bought 650 tons of gold in 2018. That was up from 374 tons in 2017, 400 tons in 2016, 570 tons in 2015, 580 tons in 2014, and this 650 tons they bought in 2018 last year was just a little bit more than the 623 tons bought in 2013. So since 2011, we've seen average years of central bank buying of about 450 to 600 tons. So this year was just outpaced the 2013 recent record of 623 tons, and there were 651 tons bought. But we have to do a deeper dive not only into who's buying and why is buying, but how much gold is this really, and what impact does it have on the supply and demand. So what you're looking at right now is a central bank gold addition and subtraction chart for 2018. And I cobbled this together from looking at the central bank websites of the Reserve Bank of India, the Central Bank of Russia. Oh, what else did I look at? I looked at the Kazakhstan central bank website, Reuters news story about Hungary, and then the World Gold Council fills out some of these other smaller amounts that are on there. But let's go from left to right and just see who's buying, who's selling, and why it's significant. Now, I have an asterisk on some of the countries, and for the most part, that indicates a gold mining country. So let's start from the far left. Australia actually sold 4 tons of gold. They're a gold mining country. They're actually the second largest. Azerbaijan added 14 tons. Not a very significant economic country, but does have gold mines. Next one over, and they bought 14 tons. China, People's Bank of China added 10 tons of gold. I don't have the number there or the asterisk, but they are also the #1 gold mining country in the world. And keep in mind that the People's Bank of China is not China's gold. It doesn't reflect the gold that Chinese investors buy in forms of bars, doesn't reflect the amount of gold they buy in terms of jewelry. It's just what the central bank has. And China only added 10 tons of gold towards China. People's Bank of China added 10 tons of gold towards the end of the year in December. They hadn't added gold to their reserves since October 2016. And because the People's Bank of China had shed over $1 trillion in foreign reserve assets from 2016 to 2018, and they only recently started building those reserves back up, and they just started adding gold again, it looks like, in December. The Euro area, which takes into account the other countries in the West, I don't know which ones lost gold, but they lost a small amount, 4 tons of gold. Germany loses about 4 tons of gold. They sell a year. They sell to the government so that the government can mint German coins. So Germany has shed about 70, 80 tons of gold over the last 10, 15 years because they do this every year and they don't add it back. Hungary was a new addition. Hungary had like 4 or 5 tons of gold, had that number of gold since World War II. They decided this year Didn't say why. To add 28 tons of gold to reserves. Now, that's significant for Hungary, but 28 tons of gold is not that much. We've seen Russia add that in a given month. India, the Reserve Bank of India, added gold for the first time in 9 years. And they are now at about almost 600 tons of gold. They added 40 tons of gold in 2018. Now, keep in mind, the Indians in general import the whole country about 900 tons of gold a year. Just keep that in mind. In 2017, they imported about 900 tons. This year, it looks like last year, when we finally get the 2018 numbers, it's going to be about 750 tons. So again, that reflects the idea that a central bank's gold is not the repository for all of a nation's gold. So when central banks' gold numbers go up, it really isn't that significant, and we're going to see more examples of that. Iraq added about 6 tons of gold. That was the first. Kazakhstan has been adding gold now for about 76 months in a row. This was a record year for Kazakhstan. They added 51 tons in 2018. 2017, they added 40. 2016, they added about 36 tons of gold. Kazakhstan also is a major gold-producing nation. The Kyrgyz Republic added 4 tons of gold, and that is a direct result of their central banker having a, quote, dream that everyone in the country owned gold and that to put his money where his mouth is. The small Republic of Kyrgyzstan is also adding gold, and they are a gold-producing nation, albeit a small one, but they're also a very small country nestled up there amongst the stands. Mongolia added gold, 22 tons. Again, they are also a major gold producer. Very few people live up there, but they have gold reserves. Poland, this was the first, added 26 tons. Unlike Hungary, they did it for like 5 months in a row. That's somewhat significant. It looks like those two countries, Eastern European countries, added gold. I don't know if that's going to be a trend continuing into 2019. But again, 26 tons, less than a month's worth of Russian gold reserves. Then we move over to Russia, the third largest gold producer in the world behind China and Australia. They added a record 271 tons. Let's put that into perspective with Russian gold reserves, is that Russia has really stepped up the pace in buying gold the last 10 years. You can see last year was a record 271 tons. I think the World Gold Council says 274. That's what I added up, 271. That is a record over last 2017's record of 224, 199 in 2016, 208 tons in 2015. Again, this is a function of Russia having a lot of gold to mine, and Russia mined about 300 tons of gold in 2018, and they pretty much exported just a little bit, and the rest of it went into the central bank of Russia's balance sheet. And the other thing, we saw this, and I've been mentioning this for years now, but the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, one of them picked it up the other day, and they said when you've got a gold mine in your backyard, similar to the language I've been using, it makes sense to convert those rubles into gold, and that's exactly what Russia's doing. Back to our chart here. If central banks are buying gold, that is all I need to know. Tajikistan, first time, added 7 tons, just like Azerbaijan, another small country economically, but does have minerals and gold. Added 7 tons. Turkey added 52 tons, but they also sold 52 tons. I'm not sure. It depends on how you calculate Turkey's gold, but I added that in there. All right, so what does this all mean? Well, really, it doesn't mean much other than if you look at what's happening is these central banks that are adding gold, for the most part, other than Poland and Hungary, are gold-producing nations with really horrific currencies. It makes total sense for them, rather than to sell their gold and convert it into the local currency or dollars. I mean, why not turn it into gold and just keep it there and put it on your balance sheet as gold, rather than sell it, convert it into the currency, and then have to buy treasuries or wherever you're going to buy euros. Just keep it as gold. And right now, that's what Kazakhstan's doing. Look at their currency. Price of gold since 2016 has gone up more than double, far more than double. You got to get 500,000 tenge Kazakhstan in order to buy an ounce of gold. So it makes sense. And right now, I'll put this out tomorrow, Kazakhstan's reserves are about almost 50% gold. Makes total sense. They've got gold. Gold is a very good reserve asset, no two ways about it. And so they do that. Russia, same thing. Russia, for all its financial prudence and central bank, the Russian ruble is not doing very well, hasn't been doing very well. But hey, if you've got 300 tons of gold a year, why sell it? Why convert it into dollars? Why buy treasuries? Dump it into gold. And that's exactly what Russia's been doing. So there's reasons for them to do that. And the bulk of the gold, if you go back to the chart here, is being added by gold producers. China, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Russia. Turkey also is a gold producer, and Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan Republic. The only non-producing nations that added any significant amounts of gold were Poland, Hungary, and India. Now, India hadn't added gold in 9 years. Hungary hadn't added gold in like 40 years. And Poland hadn't added gold in, I think, a dozen years. So these are all one-offs. I'm not sure if they mean anything. I would expect the countries with the asterisk to continue, other than Australia, to continue to add gold as we move forward. Makes total sense. Why not? If you diversify into gold, if you don't have that much gold on your balance sheet as a percentage of assets. I mean, Russia only has 18% of their reserves in gold. They've got plenty of way to go. They can do this every year. They can add essentially their entire gold mining supply if they wish. It would make sense for them to do that. Kazakhstan, I don't see stopping. They'll probably add another 50, 60 tons next year. Tajikistan, Azerbaijan, why not? Mongolia, I would expect them to add as well. And you can expect Germany to continue to sell 4 tons of gold a year. Now, what does all this mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, I'm going to show you now the gold demand, even with this big year. Okay. Gold demand in 2018, these are approximate numbers from the World Gold Council. Industrial demand, 330 tons. And that's not a lot of gold. Industrial demand basically comes from electronics. Lots of gold. People don't realize they're used in electronics. Everyone talks about silver. But about 270 tons worth of gold goes into electronics. There's other industrial uses. There's space uses. They still use it for dentistry. It's very good. Soft, puts it in the teeth. And so, yeah, about 334 tons in 2018 went into technology. Now, central banks, this big year this year, 650 tons. Now, you can see that that is less than about half, a little more than half of the investment demand for gold. Now, the investment demand for gold is in the form of coins, bars, things of that nature, ETFs. And the bulk of that is in India and China. They're two very large countries. India imports a lot of gold. Chinese, forget the central banks, but the Chinese investors added 304 tons to their stacks, whereas the People's Bank of China only added 10 tons. Indian central bank added 40 tons, as we saw, but Indians added, just in stackable gold, 162 tons. That's investment gold. Then ETFs added another 70 tons last year. But the big, every year, demand for gold is jewelry. People keep talking about central banks. The central bank component does not really pressure the gold demand. The gold demand is going to be pressured from investment in jewelry, not from industrial and central banks. And the jewelry was 2,200 tons. And where do you think the bulk of that is? 600 tons coming out of India. So you take the couple of hundred tons of investment gold in India, and then 600 tons, and that gets you to like the 800 tons that they imported last year. And essentially almost all of India's gold has to be imported to meet demand, other than gold that's already in the country. And they estimate the amount of gold in India is about 20,000 tons, just like they estimate there to be about 25,000 tons in China as well. But that doesn't stop either of them from continuing to import gold, and it doesn't stop China from continuing to produce gold. But you can see here, jewelry is the big deal, and the bulk of it, like half of the world's jewelry demand comes from China and India. Then you go to Turkey, America, a few other countries makes up the rest of it. So this central bank component in and of itself is not that significant. And if you take Russia and China out of it, remember, if Russia buys its own gold and Kazakhstan buys its own gold, that's not really detracting from gold. And China buys its own gold, Kazakhstan, China, and Russia. That's not really detracting from overall supply because it just stays there and they consume their own gold. But for example, if you take Russia's gold out of the equation and Kazakhstan's gold out of the equation, then central banks only bought 300 tons, less than the industrial amount. So that number, that central bank number, is big because of Russia and Kazakhstan. All right, what else do we got in our numbers now? The supply last year, the gold supply in terms of mined gold hit a record. The gold mined last year was 3,350 tons, and then there was recyclable gold of about 1,200 tons, and that gave us a supply of about 4,500 tons, which was higher than the gold demand when you take into account the industry, the gold miners, the central banks, the jewelry, and the investment demand. So we did not see any strain on the gold supply due to the demand coming from central banks. Now let's just look at the gold reserves by country. United States hasn't added, subtracted gold in years. I'm not going to get into that whole nonsense debate that it isn't there. Germany loses a little bit of gold every year. The IMF keeps its gold at where it is. Italy and France keep their gold where it is. It's Russia that's moving on up, and China moving on up. On the league tables, Switzerland used to have 2,000 tons of gold, sold that in order to join the IMF. They're down to 1,040. Japan hasn't added any gold. The Netherlands haven't added any gold, but India has. So in the top 10, very little movement other than Russia and China, and a little bit on India. If you move to the second tier, Taiwan doesn't add any. Portugal hasn't added any. Kazakhstan has vaulted into the top 20. They should be in the top 10 soon. Saudi Arabia hasn't added any. England sold a good portion of their gold about 20 years ago. Lebanon hasn't added any. Spain, Austria, Turkey adds and subtracts, and then Belgium. So there's not much movement in these. The countries that were adding gold, as we saw, if we go back to the charts, are ones that have very little gold and haven't purchased gold in quite some time. Let's take another look at that chart for you there. So it's Russia and Kazakhstan, the ones that are really buying every year. Now we're adding Hungary, very small amount. That they now have 31 tons. Poland, Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, not much in the way there. Mongolia as well. And we'll take one more look at a chart. Look at the top 20. And there's your top 20. Just you could see it better there. You can see Russia and China moving up, and India at 580. And Kazakhstan is the one to keep an eye on as they move up as well. All right, well, that is it. You can see that central bank demand does not really impact the overall demand dynamic. But you hear all these gold pumpers. What's going on? Central banks are buying gold hand over fist. No, they're not. It's hyperbole to say the amount of gold they're buying is hand over fist. It is just prudent for them to do what they're doing, especially if you have a gold mine in your backyard and the price of gold is rising and you can get it below the price of gold. You get it at the price of production. I mean, why not do it? All right, let's see what you guys are thinking, and then we're going to get on with the evening. All right. Let's see. All right, we're back. All right, Ann's talking about their cryptos. All right, if we don't have any questions, I'm going to let you guys go here. Fiona Whalen, Russia's buying gold because they know they're going to be cut off the Swiss system rather sooner than later. Gold will be the only way to transact internationally. No, I don't think so. They're not going to transact with the gold, they will be cut off the SWIFT system. Gold is not an easy way to transact. They're adding gold, I believe, to hold on as to reserves. I don't think they'll ever transact with the gold or sell that gold. What they're doing is they're diversifying into other currencies as well, and then they'll trade that way. I believe you're partially right. It's just my opinion. It's not a fact. But that they are clearly diversifying, and they're realizing since they have no trade with the U.S., there's really no reason to hold dollars if they can hold gold as their anchor assets, but they still going to need a transactional currency. And to a certain extent, they will also hold dollars. They may not hold treasuries, but they'll also hold euros, they'll hold yuan. For example, if they're going to trade with China, they're not going to trade the gold. They're going to trade with the yuan. There may be certain instances where they might have to trade and do gold trade notes, but I doubt it because for the most part, Russia is going to export oil, and they're going to accept whatever they wish to accept for their oil, which will probably be dollars. It doesn't hurt them to have dollars, but as you're right, for transacting, they're going to have other ways of transacting. I suspect the former Soviet Union republics buy gold to transact with Russia. Well, that's possible. Yeah, that's possible. But I also think it's because the former Soviet Union countries also have gold, and they've only recently begun to exploit those resources. Kazakhstan used to mine 10 to 20 tons of gold a year 10 years ago, and they've really ramped it up. So there's a confluence of events, I believe, with the stands really starting to exploit their mineral deposits, and with them also coinciding with maybe wanting to trade with the Eastern Bloc. But I think for the most part, it's the fact that they've really just started to increase their development of their gold mines, so they're adding that gold to the reserves. Jack, gold making all-time highs in many countries all over the world, meaning the world's inflating currency. Absolutely. What a lot of people don't get is that gold is the superior currency even to the dollar. I mean, in all of the currencies, gold goes up for the last 10 years, almost every year. We've shown that. Maybe I bring those charts back again another night. But it's only, and even against the dollar, gold has gone up most of the years in the last 20 years against the dollar too. You really can't go wrong with gold if you are a personal saver. I'm not talking about versus stocks, but if you're just going to hold dollars or gold, generally it seems to have been you've been better off with the gold for sure. But if you're in Turkey, Kazakhstan, Russia, any of these other countries, Argentina, there's no way you would ever hold on to your local currency. You would always want to have gold. It's almost 99% of the years, if you held gold, the gold will have done better. Your currency, your home currency, will have depreciated against the gold. The only reason that dollar does better some years than gold is because there's a demand for dollars in international trade. That's the main reason, and that people view it as a secure currency, so it holds its value better than the other currencies. But there's nothing that beats gold in a local currency, and I've shown this from time to time, 20 or 30 different world currencies. Gold almost always does better than the local currency, whether it's Indian rupee, Chinese yuan, Russian ruble. Silver, not so much. Silver is a crapshoot, but gold and Australian dollars, Canadian dollars, you're better off with the gold than your local currency. That's a good point, Jack. All right, let's see. What else do we got here? Stacking assets must be a bottom in silver. People are taking AG out of their name. That's funny. Yeah. ASMR people. Gold is used in electronics where you can't have contacts tarnished. A good example is in contacts, defibrillator contacts. Also in, that's a good point, also in the space equipment that they send out there. They can't have that tarnishing either. Right. When Warren Buffett cornered the silver market, says Jackie, owned 20% of all silver above ground. Yeah, that was about 129 million ounces, which equated to less than 2% of the value of Berkshire Hathaway. Yes, silver is a super small market, point we like to make all the time. A year's annual mining supply will run you about, what, $14-15 billion at today's prices. There's about 60, 80 people in the world that have more than that in dollars. All right, let's see. Central banks are buying small gold mugs, hand over fist. That is all I need to know, says Pablo. That is right. There they are, the Smaulgld classic and super classic mugs available from smaulgld.com. By the way, if you're interested in adding gold to your own stack, check out the links under this BitChute or this YouTube. You can buy from SD Bullion, Golden Eagle Coin, Money Metals Exchange. There's links there. If you do, Smaulgld gets a small commission. It does help the site pay its expenses, and also you pay no more, no less than if you visited those sites directly. It's not investment advice to buy gold, but if you're going to do so, please check out the links below. Which country has the highest amount of gold? Well, it depends on whether you mean per capita or you mean just total tonnage, and it depends on whether you mean which country has the most gold within its borders or whether you mean which central bank has the most gold. The central bank or the treasury that has the most gold officially is the United States. The country that has the most gold within its borders is either China or India. And per capita, the country that has the most gold per person is Switzerland. All right. Assets, love the diverse name. The Black Hawk copper, I don't know what that is. Let's see, U.S. is most. Yeah. The way Indians buy gold, says Durgesh Chance, Indians have the highest amount of gold. Possibly, yes. I mean, there's estimates between 18 and 22,000, up to 25,000 tons of gold in India between, they say, about 4,000 or 5,000 tons at the Indian temples, the rest with the Indian people. And they say in the last 15 years that India has also imported a large amount, and they may have 25,000 tons within their border. So that's, 50. If you take India and China, and they say there's 200,000 tons or so of gold out there, they may have 50, 60,000 of those tons. All right. And that's about it. All right, everyone. I want to thank everyone for joining me. Sorry for the technical difficulties that we had. But please remember, if you enjoyed this, you can always donate to Smaulgld via Bitcoin, Litecoin at the QR codes that you see on your screen. You can support the site by donating via check or sending precious metals, if you like, to the Smaulgld LLC, P.O. Box 714, Dover, New Hampshire, 03821, or making a one-time donation on PayPal or becoming a Smaulgld patron. Remember, we have no ads on the site, and all we do is pump mugs, because mugs are real wealth. Mugs can never go to zero. Mugs make good self-defense tools, and you can store Mountain House in a mug. So, get your Smaulgld mugs. And don't forget, the Smaulgld Game Changer mug from the Smaulgld store will only be available to the end of the month. That is the one that is now in gold. And in the back, you can write Game Changer in any type of font you wish. All of the details, how to buy Smaulgld mugs, are below this BitChute and this YouTube. So thanks very much for joining me. Remember, we do this each and every night around 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stacking Assets says his mug went to zero when you dropped it. Did you buy a mug? I didn't know that you had purchased one. If not, it's time to order another one. By the way, if you're worried about your mug breaking, you can always order the Smaulgld travel mug. Now, the travel mug is made of steel, so it will not break. And let me show you that one. And if you get that, let me just show you some of the fine Smaulgld mugs. It's not just the classic and super classic mugs that you see, but there's also a Smaulgld travel mug, which is great. It seals up. You can ride that in the car. There's a Smaulgld espresso mug, which you can see is a smaller mug. But then we also have a series of Smaulgld mug shots. And they are beer mugs. Let me show you. The beer mugs are really nice. There's two beer mugs. There is a Smaulgld beer stein, 22 ounce. Very, very beautiful looking stein. Let me show you that. That's that right there. Look at that. It's got the gold trim on it. Very attractive looking mug. That's available through the Smaulgld store. Only the Smaulgld Classic and Super Classic mugs are available, and I ship those out directly. You order those directly from the Smaulgld website. The other ones you have to order through the Smaulgld store on Zazzle, and all the links are there below. There's also Smaulgld glass. There you go. That is like glass to ceramics. But you do need to have some Smaulgld glass. Let me show you the beer mugs again, but there's also a frosted mug, which is really an attractive looking thing. Oh, look at this. There you go. There's a Smaulgld mug there. You can see that's a frosted mug. When you put that in the freezer, a little water on, you get a double frosting, which is really cool. You scrape off the frosting and then it's still frosted, which I think is a nice touch to your cold mug or frozen mug. And then we also have, let me show you a Smaulgld mug shot. And then we also have shot glasses. So we have Smaulgld mug shots of the mugs. So for example, there is the Smaulgld classic mug shot, coming in at about 5'6". But then we also have Smaulgld mug shot glasses. Now check this out. This is a shot glass. You can also go order this from the Smaulgld store. There's your Smaulgld mug shot glass. And I think we've seen all the stuff. If you have a pet, there's a Smaulgld pet bowl. There you go. I think Lucky wants one of those. Got plenty of people send us pictures of their dogs and cats now with the Smaulgld paraphernalia that they have. And remember always to lead the Smaulgld mug life. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, and we will see you soon. Buonanotte. Smaulgld.com. Bingo star.